Hello and welcome to the MCQ lecture series. In today's class, we are going to look at some of the important multiple choice questions with respect to Financial System 2, which is the Economics General paper for SYBA. In my previous lecture, I have covered the introductory part of chapter 4, which is the last chapter in this semester. In today's class, we are going to talk about the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So let's get started. The first question is, in legal terms, a state where the liabilities of an individual or an organization exceeds its assets and the entity is unable to raise enough cash to meet its obligations is called as what? What is effectively happening here is that his or her liabilities are more as compared to his or her assets, and it is difficult to raise enough money to conduct the day-to-day business or activities. And what do you call such a situation? What is the legal term for such a situation? And the underlying options are A, bankruptcy, B, insolvency, C, bad institutions, or D, none of the above. So here the legal term for a state where the liabilities of an individual or an organization exceeds its assets and it is very difficult for that individual or organization to raise cash so as to carry out its regular business is called as insolvency, and therefore option B, insolvency, is the correct answer to this particular question. Very important idea of what insolvency particularly means in legal terms. Let us now move to the next one. Dash is the legal procedure through which an insolvent debtor seeks relief. Otherwise or alternatively, it is a situation where the company is legally declared incapable of paying their dues and payable bills. So what do you call such a situation or legal proceeding wherein the indebtor declares himself or herself as insolvent and seeks relief, or alternatively he or she is in a situation where the company is legally declared incapable of paying their dues or any other payable bills? Whether you call such a situation to be bankruptcy, whether you call it to be insolvency, whether it is a sick unit, or D, none of the above. So here the legal procedure through which an insolvent debtor seeks relief is called as bankruptcy. So you file a bankruptcy. So here option A, bankruptcy, is the correct answer. I hope the concepts associated with the insolvency and bankruptcy code is pretty much clear. That means the definition or meaning of what does insolvency means and what does bankruptcy means. Let us now move to the next one. Now obvious question is the insolvency and bankruptcy code, which is there in your syllabus. Now the first question is, dash introduced the insolvency and bankruptcy code bill. So let us look at who introduced it, and the underlying options are A, state governments, B, local self-government, that means panchayats and zilla parishads. Then we have C, central government, or D, the International Monetary Fund. So here in case of India, the insolvency and bankruptcy code bill was introduced by the central government, and therefore option C, central government, is the correct answer to this particular question. I hope this is clear. Here I am asking who introduced the bill. Okay, let's now move to the next one. The next one says the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Here onwards I won't use the entire term Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, rather I'll use this one, IBC, that is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, was introduced by central government in dash year. Which year the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code was introduced? And the underlying options are A, 2012, B, 2014, C, 2016, and D, 2018. So here a very factual sort of a question. IBC, that is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, was introduced in the year 2016, and therefore option C, 2016, is the correct answer to this particular question. So it was introduced in 2016 by the central government. Yeah, I hope both these questions are clear. Let us now move to the next one. The next one is the IBC, or the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, was intended to tackle what? It was intended to tackle what? Because see, we have seen what does the term insolvency means, what does the term bankruptcy means. There is some sort of bill which was introduced by the central government known as Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code Bill. It was introduced in the year 2016. Now, what was the intention of that is the IBC, that is the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So here the IBC was intended to tackle what, that is the question, and the underlying options are A, bad loans, that is the IBC was intended to tackle bad loans. Then option B is it was intended to tackle banking technology. Option C is it was intended to tackle bank licensing, and last is none of the above. So here the major intention of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code bill was to tackle the bad loans associated with institutions. Okay, so here both banks as well as financial institutions and corporates per se. So here option A, bad loans, is the correct answer. So now you are, I hope, getting a hang of what is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code bill, why it was introduced. It was introduced to tackle the bad loans or the problems of bad loans associated with banks, financial institutions as well as corporates. I hope this question is clear. Let us now move to the next one. The next one is the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code Bill 2016 was enacted for the reorganization and insolvency resolution of dash, for the reorganization and insolvency resolution of whom. The underlying options are A, corporate persons, B, partnership firms, C, individuals, and D, all of the above. So here the IBC code was enacted for the reorganization and the resolution or insolvency resolution for all of these, that means corporate persons, individuals as well as partnership firms, and therefore option D, all of the above, in this case is the correct answer to this particular question. I hope that is clear. Let us now move to the next one, which talks about the positive impact of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016, and the question is the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code Bill 2016 has dash positive impact. What kind of positive impact does it have? So let us look at the underlying option. A, enhancement of foreign direct investment. B, improve ease of doing business for India. C is improve position of banks and corporates by limiting risks. Then the last is all of the above. So here again, what are the positive impacts of IBC? That is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. All of these are the positive impacts. That means in a sense to improve the ease of doing business in India, also improve the position of banks and corporates and limiting their risks, and also the enhancement of foreign direct investment in India. So here again option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. I hope the positive impacts associated with IBC 2016 are pretty much clear. Let us now move to the next one, which talks about the aims of bankruptcy laws in India, and the question is dash are the aims of bankruptcy laws in India. And let us look at the underlying options. First is to provide rescue mechanism for distressed entities. That means these distressed entities can be corporate persons, individuals or partnership firms. Okay. The second is to facilitate faster winding up of insolvent entities. For example, there's an entity which is declared insolvent, and then we know that there are a lot of people associated with that entity, and the entity has a lot of liabilities associated with them, and therefore a very sort of facilitation of a very faster sort of resolution mechanism or winding up is given under the bankruptcy laws. Then the third point is provide easier exit route for investors. That is what I told just now, that is there are a lot of people who are associated with an corporate firm or any partnership firm, and as a result of that these investors should have a very easy exit route. Okay, so that is again the aim of bankruptcy laws. And the last is all of the above, that means easier route for the investors, exit route per se, then facilitate faster winding up of insolvent entities, and also provide rescue mechanism for distressed entities. So here the correct answer is option D, all of the above. So these are all the aims of bankruptcy laws in India. I hope this is clear. Let us now move to the next one. This one is the last question in this session. In the next session, I am going to continue with Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So please stay tuned for more. Yeah, let us look at the last one. The last one is the insolvency regime that existed in India in the past are what? What were the insolvency regimes that existed in India in the past before the introduction of your Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code in 2016? What kind of mechanism existed in India? And the underlying options are A, Presidency Towns Insolvency Act 1909, that means 1909 means this is from the British era. The second is Sikh Industrial Companies Act, Sikh, okay, Sikh Industrial, SICK, I am talking about this, okay. So here the next act was Sikh Industrial Companies Act of 1985. Then we have the Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008, and we also have the Companies Act of 2013. So here we have to guess, or we have to identify the insolvency regimes that existed in India in the past before the introduction of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code Bill 2016. And let us look at what are the underlying options. Here we have to select the correct answer. So these are the sort of options available to us, and here we have to look at from amongst these which are given to us, which existed in India before the IBC 2016. So let us look at the first option. The first option is A and B, that means Presidency Towns Insolvency Act 1909 and Sikh Industrial Companies Act 1985. The second is B and C, that is Sikh Industrial Companies Act 1985 and Limited Liability Partnership Act 2008. Then we have C and D, that means Limited Liability Partnership Act 2008 and the Companies Act 2013. And the last is all of the above, that is A, B, C and D, that means all of these existed before the introduction of IBC 2016. So here the correct answer is option D, all of the above. That means all of these insolvency regimes existed before the introduction of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code in 2016, and therefore option D, or option 4 rather in this case, is the correct answer, which says that all of these, that is Presidency Towns Insolvency Act, Sikh Industrial Companies Act of 1985, Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008 and the Companies Act of 2013 are all of these insolvency regimes that existed in India before the IBC 2016. So I hope the questions associated with Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code are pretty much clear. In the next session, I'm going to continue with the same topic. So please stay tuned for more. Thank you.